Session 3 is all about reassurance. As we identified in session 1, to create a sustainable environment, we need to provide reassurance along with encouragement and motivation. So we're going to use this session to look at creating a supportive environment with the ideal that we help people overcome their natural resistance to change. Reassurance is about support. It's about helping people to overcome this natural resistance. Why do people resist change? Because as human beings, we are pretty good at understanding that new and different actually requires effort, it requires risk-taking. There are no guarantees this new future will be easier than what we have today. And so a number of fears build up. We become very concerned about how much knowledge and experience we're actually losing. We're not sure if the new way of working will be more difficult or more time-consuming or just harder to understand than what we have today. We then fear being left behind as others, perhaps others in our team or our superiors or even our subordinates, actually adapt to the changes more quickly than we do. And we actually worry about how hard it's going to be to learn something new. So we have some deep-seated fears, even though we don't necessarily realise them when we look at doing something new. But it's what causes us to hesitate. It's what causes us to procrastinate. And in our agile change approach, we know that what we want to do is deliver change in iteration after iteration. So we can't have this hesitancy. It's part of our job to create as much reassurance as possible. There are 5 reactions to change that take place across what you can see on the right-hand side here is this transition curve. Now, what we're seeing with this blue curve here, leading to the benefits at the end of the implementation, is there is some kind of dip in our productivity. In fact, on the left there, the axis could be productivity, it could be confidence, because there's a big link between them over time. So what happens is that we are immediately confronted by change and we start to sort of look back at appreciating our current state. Then we start to have worries about a loss of group membership, of learning new things, and of course, of the loss of productivity that we're starting to experience. If we can provide enough reassurance to overcome these concerns and these natural reactions to change, then we end up with the last reaction, which is that we start to turn the corner and we start to appreciate the new state. So we start to sort of build up our confidence and our excitement as we move up towards actually realizing benefits. Now, let's have a look at these 5 reactions in a bit more detail. So when we're first confronted with change, some resistance comes from actually appreciating that what we have today isn't as bad as we thought it was. We may have been complaining about it, even if we didn't think what we do today is that great. When we are confronted by losing it, it becomes a lot more valuable. And this, of course, slows our willingness to embrace something new because we're comparing it against what is now perhaps an overly optimistic, an overly positive view of what we have so far. So what we have to do is give very clear messages about what the future is going to include, and how we work today isn't necessarily a part of that. Perhaps we have to create the message that what we do today isn't fit for the future. So we need to talk about how circumstances have changed, how our industry has changed, how our customer demand has changed, or technological improvements. But we need to give people that feeling that we appreciate how you work today works for you, but it doesn't really work for how we want to go forward in the future. We need to be very clear about what isn't coming with us from how we work today, so that people understand what it is they're going to leave behind, what they're going to stop doing. And ultimately, therefore, we're giving them permission. We're giving them that authority to say, okay, I am going to now tune into this new way of working. I'm going to give this new way of working all of my effort. As people start to move forward about working in new ways, this is when the fears around losing their group membership actually come to pass, because people worry about being left behind or left out of the group that they were already a part of, that social group that we form at work. It might be the direct team that we work with, but it might also be other people in other departments, or in fact within customers or suppliers that we formed good relationships. If our work is changing, we fear the loss of those relationships. So whatever relationships we have based on our current ways of working, losing those, or the possibility of losing those, makes people feel really nervous. It makes people feel lonely. It makes people feel exposed as they're on their own. So we need to think about new groups, and we need to help people make the transition into new groups and new social norms, because people worry about their value and how they're coming across and how they'll be perceived by others. So what we need to do as part of the change is help people work with others, to collaborate with others, to co-create, so that they form new relationships. And then they're getting the society and the community from work that they always had, but perhaps it's just with different people. We all worry about learning new things. We worry about our ability to process new information. You're on this course. You're probably worried about your ability to retain everything that I'm saying. You're thinking about perhaps playing this video several times, going over the slides, underlining keywords perhaps in your notebook, and make sure that it's all going into your head. Because learning's hard. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of concentration. And I think people encounter change with these fears of, well, where am I going to find the time to concentrate on this? I've got to learn new things. Where am I going to find the time to do that? What happens if other people find it really easy to learn and I don't? Maybe I'm going to fall behind. Maybe I'll be seen as less useful. Maybe I won't be respected anymore, because people turn to me at the moment for all of the answers in how we work today. But we're all going to be in the same boat. Nobody will really know how the new thing works. And if I'm really slow at learning it, well, I won't be the go-to person anymore. So there's an awful lot of emotional fear in learning. And we need to help people overcome these fears by, an easy way to do this is to clarify the things that they don't have to relearn. Concentrate on pointing out the things that are not going to change, to reassure them that there are parts of their job that they still know how to do that are not changing, even with these new ways of working coming in, because that can really decrease the level of stress that people are feeling. And inevitably, because we're not stupid, we recognise that when we do something for the first few times, we tend to go more slowly because we look at our notes. We might have been on a training course, but we haven't done it live before. So we're going to go slowly, we're going to make some mistakes, we're going to need time to put those mistakes right. That's going to knock our confidence, and we're going to go even more slowly. And we're probably going to have some residual anger, because there is nothing more frustrating than having to work in a new way when you're very comfortable with how you currently work, and you wouldn't be making all these mistakes and you wouldn't be going so slowly. So there's a part of your brain that's comparing your productivity with how it used to be, and it feels frustrating because of that. So one of the things we need to do with our reassurance is to acknowledge the amount of effort that people are putting in to actually learn the new ways of working, that huge amount of effort, and recognise that possibly they feel quite tired. So maybe this isn't the time to add lots of extra new things. Let's just concentrate on getting this change in place so that people can really concentrate and not become overwhelmed. Good news is that if we can get through these reactions, the final reaction is how change starts to become more familiar. It starts to become more of an automatic reaction. It's something that we can do without really thinking about it, because we've done it so many times before. And because of that, we make fewer and fewer mistakes, which means that we can work at a faster rate. And because of that, we start to feel more confident. And we start to forget how we used to do things, because how we're now doing it has become the new norm for us. And of course, the thing to concentrate on is that with the return of that sort of automatic behaviour, we get our confidence back. And that means we start to get our enjoyment back. So we need to be thinking about creating some kind of positivity to create that sort of openness to new ideas. And in that way, the change starts to become embedded in how we do things, and the benefits start to be realised. So there is something about keeping that reassurance going all the way through the life of change until we're coming out the other side, if you like, of that transition curve. Now, to conclude this session, I want you to have a think about when you recently learned something new, because it's about being able to think through the emotions of when we're confronted by change. Think about when you had to adopt a new way of working. Try to remember how long it took, whether you made mistakes. Were you going more slowly? Were you getting more frustrated? Were you worried about being embarrassed that your productivity or your mistakes would be looked on negatively by others? How did you keep yourself going? All I'm asking you to do really is to walk through this life cycle of change and think about your own reactions so that you can be more empathetic with others when they are also going through change.